When I think about a test or a trial, this is what I think of. We go through experiences in order to discover our capacities.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Today is April 4th, 2022, the third day of Ramadan, the year 1443 after Hijrah. I would like to welcome you to our live Ramadan special called Our Prosperous Ramadan. Today's guest is an incredibly impressive individual, Brother Jihad Turk. He is known as previously being the Imam and Director of Religious Affairs at LA's oldest and largest mosque. He is a nationally recognized speaker, an advocate for interfaith relations, Muslims in America, and ethical leadership, and he is currently the president and founder of Bayan, which engages and educates the next generation of Muslim leaders and scholars. Welcome, brother. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Ramadan Mubarak.
Ramadan Mubarak to you as well. Do you mind sharing a little bit more with our guests about your background that I didn't get to?
Sure. Well, my name is Jihad Turk, and people might assume that I'm Turkish, which I'm not. I'm an American kid from Arizona, but my mom's from Oklahoma. She's Christian American. My father, however, is an immigrant from Jerusalem, and he immigrated to the U.S. in 1956 as a 17-year-old. So I was born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona. And my father named me and my brother, and my mom named our three sisters. And so, you know, Jihad wasn't a very common name back in the 70s when I was born, 1971. And, you know, some of my classmates or my soccer mates, teammates on my soccer team, AYSO, started calling me Jay. And I remember one time my father, when he received the roster of names on the team and it said J Turk, Jay Turk, he looked disappointed, and so he crossed out the name and wrote Jihad and made copies or dittos back in the day. And he went to one of the games and he passed it out on the sideline. I was like, I don't know, 8. I was very embarrassed. I was like, Dad, what are you doing? He goes, no, I gave you the name Jihad because it has a good meaning. It means the struggle to do the right thing. And it might not be familiar to people. It might be hard for people to remember, but it's worth it extra effort. And this was before anyone had ever heard of jihad in the West. And so, you know, I've always gone by jihad ever since then. Of course, you know, what's happened in the world by way of, you know, terrorism and 9/11 and all of that, I've kind of become a walking teaching moment. In fact, LA Times did a front page profile piece on me back in 2009 saying his name Jihad, his message peace, because, you know, they followed me around for a while, the reporters did, and they noticed that a lot of what I was doing was interfaith work and as the imam at the mosque representing the American Muslim community. And so I would say my name is a conversation starter. I'm kind of a walking teaching moment. But you know, it's funny because I started out as, just an engineering student my freshman year in college. And I remember asking my dad what I should study in college. And he said, son, it doesn't matter what you study. You're Palestinian. You're going to go into business. So he wasn't very helpful. But I started out engineering because I was good in math and science. But with my mom being Christian American, my dad being Muslim Palestinian, I began asking some of the big questions in life. Sunday school didn't quite present Islam in a meaningful and fulfilling way. So I still had questions. And so I began exploring my the Islamic faith as well as Christianity. And eventually I ended up applying for and getting a scholarship to study at the Islamic University in Medina. So I withdrew after my freshman year of college and studied a couple of years there, and then transferred to UC Berkeley, where I ended up doing a major in Islamic studies, Islamic history and Arabic, and also learning Farsi in Iran, and then going on to my master's degree in Islamic studies at UT Austin, and came out to UCLA to do my doctoral degree in 1999. So all of that is simply to say, I started out not quite knowing what I was going to do, but just my heart was pulling me towards learning about the faith, and then wanting to become a professor so that I could teach at the university level and provide accurate information about Islam and Muslims to the society at large, but also to the large number of Muslim students who are studying engineering and medicine and other fields.
That's really impressive. And you're right, your name is quite the story. And in Islam too, our names are very important. So I'm glad that your father was a part of the story as well, because he chose this. And as we were chatting right before we started recording, what ends up happening in our life, sometimes it's hard to plan, but you've been following your heart, and your name has been a part of the story, as well as all the things you've done. And this actually, the fact that you went abroad and studied, and now you have created something, Bayan, I want to learn more about that and have our listeners understand what inspired you to start that, and what's the need for having an institution or a program like Bayan.
Well, I actually didn't plan on founding an Islamic graduate school, but I was serving as the imam of LA's oldest and largest mosque while getting my doctorate in Islamic studies at UCLA and teaching there as adjunct. And I was approached by the president of a Christian seminary, Dr. Jerry Campbell, and he was the president of Claremont School of Theology, which is a 130-year-old Christian seminary, Methodist-based, but they were doing or ecumenical, means inter-Christian education. And he came to me and he said, people, when they think of religion, they think of conflict and, they think of something negative. He said, we want to reclaim, as Christians, we want to reclaim the image of Christianity to be one that's positive, something that people think of as contributing to the betterment of this world. And I've been working as the new president to try and figure out a way we can do that effectively. And I have an idea, and I wanted to get your advice and support and help in realizing it. I said, okay, well, what's the idea? He said, well, we want to reclaim religious education or theological education to be that force for peacemaking in the world and creating the world to make it a better place by desegregating theological education. I said, what do you mean? He said, we're a Christian seminary, but we want to partner with a Muslim seminary so that our Christian students can learn from Muslim faculty about Islam and Muslims, and vice versa, not for the purpose of trying to convert one another, but for the purpose of trying to better understand and appreciate one another, and also develop good bonds of cooperation and friendship, so that when the next generation of religious leaders goes out to serve in the world, they will have it as part of their core training. It's in their DNA that they will work collaboratively and cooperatively across difference for the betterment of the world. And I said, well, that's brilliant. Well, what can I do to be helpful? He said, well, can you help identify, this is back in 2009. He said, can you help identify an accredited Islamic graduate school / seminary that we can partner with? And I said, well, that's easy. There doesn't exist any in all of the United States, let alone in Southern California, but we need one. And I happen to be an academic by training, a religious leader by experience. I think I can rally the Muslim community in the U.S., at least starting here in Southern California, to support the launching of such an institution. And Zaytuna was just starting as an undergraduate at that time, but this was for graduate level. So he said, great, if you do that, we can help you in 3 important ways. We can share our campus, all of our infrastructure, our classroom, our admissions office, our library. I said, well, that's very generous of you. He said, we can also incubate you so that you're accredited from the beginning. So your master's degrees will be accredited master's degrees, and your graduates can go on to PhDs and, continue their studies. I said, well, that's phenomenal. And he said, there's more. I said, what more could there be? He said, well, we have a funder. He'll provide the funding for the first couple of years until you get established, and then you can carry your own weight. And I said, well, that's very Christian of you, Jerry. And so we announced it in 2010, and our first incoming class of 3 students to get a master's degree in Islamic studies and leadership entered in 2011. And alhamdulillah, since then, we've had over 150 students enroll in the institution. And alhamdulillah, we've graduated more than 50 and are really looking forward to continued growth. And we also recently moved from Claremont now to Chicago. So we're based in Chicago, but we're offering it it doesn't really matter where we're located, because we're offering it in a hybrid intensive format. So our students work full-time, living in different parts of the US primarily, although some are international students, and they just converge into Chicago for 1 or 2 weeks a semester. The rest is online. So it's really designed for those who are serving the American Muslim community to develop the skill set needed to more effectively serve the American Muslim community as imams, as youth directors, as Islamic school teachers and principals, and as chaplains.
Wow, that's really, really impressive and amazing. And although you say that, I know maybe those listening, they don't hear any of this as education and academia as something that's really a business, like going back to your dad's story. But everything you described so far to me is very entrepreneurial, to be able to create partnerships, utilize strengths of others. You get the funding and all the things that a good entrepreneur can do. But I know you're much, much more than that. And it's very nice to see.
I have to say, I was thinking the same thing when this kind of unfolded before me. I was going back to the comments of my father. I was like, there must be something in the DNA.
I think so. So, speaking of Bayan, then for the academic standards that you have and the educators that you have, how did you get them, and who are some of your professors that are in this program?
Yeah, so when we started, we said, okay, well, we don't have a big endowment. We're not taking foreign government money. This is a quintessentially American Muslim institution. How can we, from scratch, start with a very high quality degree that has faculty that are well respected and well regarded, both in academia as well as in the community at large? How can we pull that off? I mean, it would require a lot of money to have endowed positions that would entice tenured faculty from august elite U.S. institutions of higher education this would take hundreds of millions of dollars. So part of the entrepreneurial sort of gene that was activated at that moment was to sort of say, well, what can we do that would not compromise on the quality, but would make it accessible not just for students, but would allow us to curate, to select the best of the best, but as visiting faculty, so that we don't have to cover all of their overhead and have all of the expense of having this large faculty that is fully employed by Bayan. What we can do is borrow, let's say, faculty from Yale or Stanford or Berkeley or Duke or Georgetown, these great institutions, and have them teach the course in which they're the leading expert, but just as a visiting faculty. They would come once every 2 years. They would teach the course on a 2-year cycle. They would teach the course in which, like I said, they're the leading expert, and they would do it without having to give up their position or even their course load for that semester. They would teach it intensively in person on campus in Chicago now for 6 days in a row, 5 hours a day, which is 30 hours of instruction in a 6-day period. And that way The students can come from around the country and they're study there on campus now at the University of Chicago campus. And the faculty can be there as well, and they would just reschedule their courses for that 1 week. They would only miss a week of their whole semester. The students who would come would take 5 hours of classes from that faculty member in the morning, and if they were taking 2 classes, they would take another 5 hours of classes in the afternoon. That's 10 hours of classes a day for 6 days in a row, which sounds pretty intensive and almost insane. But we started this as a trial 8 years ago, and we started using this obscure program called Zoom. I think the rest of the world has heard about Zoom now, but we've been using them. Zoom's only 10 years old. We've been using them for 8 of those years. And 1/3 of the classwork is done online, only 1/3. 2/3 is in person in this intensive format. Now it gets better. I mean, by better, I mean more intense. For a full-time student, they would take 4 classes. And how would they do that if they're taking 10 hours of classes a day in a week? Well, they would stay on for another week. The faculty would go back to their universities. 2 new faculty would come, and they would teach an additional 10 hours a day collectively. And so the students would receive 120 hours of instruction in 13 days. They would get 1 day off in between the 6 intensive days in the first week and the 6 intensive days in the second week. So all of this is to say that this has been working quite well for the last 8 years, and the students love it, the faculty love it, and this allows us to bring people like Dr. Sherman Jackson from USC, who's a very, very well-respected Muslim scholar, you know, Abdul Hakim Jackson, and then we have Omar Farouk Abdullah, who's based out of Chicago, a brilliant mind and heart. We have Dr. Zarina Grewal from Yale University, and her husband, Dr. Hamada Hamid from Yale. We have Jonathan Brown from Georgetown. We have Omid Safi from Duke. We have Awaymer Enjam from Toledo. We have Asfa Quraishi from Wisconsin. We have Asad Ahmed from Berkeley. We have over 60 faculty. The list goes on and on. So we have some incredible faculty that we've borrowed, and we have some full-time faculty as well. Jihad Brown, we have Dr. Ozgur Koja, Dr. Hamid Mavani as well. And it's really just, it's an incredible lineup of who's who. Dr. Rami Nashashibi from the University of, from Chicago, rather. He's the executive director at IMAN, Inner City Muslim Action Network. Half of our courses are Islamic studies, and the other half are leadership skills. So Dr. Rami Nashashibi, for example, teaches a course entitled Community Organizing as Spiritual Practice, where he studies the life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as a leader, and then helps our students embody the leadership style of the Prophet and how he engaged people and moved people to action and transformation. So it's an incredible opportunity for those students who might already be serving as an imam or a youth director or an Islamic school teacher, and some of whom who've studied at Azhar or Medina or at Dar al-Ulum, to then also get a graduate level academic understanding of the faith, but also all the leadership skills that those places abroad don't offer. I mean, I studied at the Islamic University of Medina. We didn't learn any leadership skills. So, you know, having a course on counseling young people, civic engagement, interfaith relations, you know, community organizing and how to work with volunteers. These are really important skill sets that any imam or youth director or community leader really needs to effectively serve the American Muslim community. And that's kind of what we're offering at Bayan.
That is brilliant, magnificent, impressive. And it sounds like the perfect marriage of 2 very important concepts, both leadership and in this setting here, you know, here in America, a lot of ways to really reach the youth as well, because I think that's really important. A lot of people are maybe not as sure about Islam, or we see that a lot of people are straying from the religion in different ways. But what does it mean to you? I myself, also born and raised in the United States, I identify as an American Muslim. What do you've talked to us already about your background, but how would you define and what do you think it means to be an American Muslim today?
You know, last semester we just brought on one of our graduates who then went on to do a PhD. He's an African-American imam from South Central Los Angeles named Jihad Safir. So Dr. Imam Jihad Safir, or Imam Dr. Jihad Safir, I forget which order they go in, but he teaches a course for us entitled Identity Formation of the Youth, right? It's adolescent identity formation. And part of what we teach at Bayan is exactly that. It helps the leaders pass on this well-adjusted identity as both being fully American and fully Muslim. You know, I would say in answer to your question that, first of all, home is where your children and grandchildren will be raised, not where your parents and grandparents were born. And with that mindset, the question is, you know, how do we express the values of Islam, the spirit of Islam in the cultural context of the United States? And one thing that I always talk to our young people about is to not just be consumers of culture, but be producers of culture. That you know, when we talk about Islam, we're talking about this universal set of values and beliefs that's accessible to everybody, that really should model for the rest of our society how we can get along across racial and ethnic difference, which is something our country is struggling with. We have that in our faith that we can model for the world and for our country, how best to do that, as well as how to bridge the economic divide, because there's a growing rift between the haves and the have-nots. Yes. The value of education and of ethical business practices. I mean, these are things that if we lead with them, we will be helping address problems that plague our society. And young people in particular, they want to be they want to have purpose in life. And if we present Islam in a way that gives them a sense of meaning and purpose, then it will help them not just be individuals who want to conform and fit in, but who would like to lead with the moral clarity that our faith provides. And I think that that's what it really means to be an American Muslim. It's to have the fluency in the language and symbolism of our society, but have the foundation of the values and the ethics and the beliefs that our religion provides, and then exert leadership, cultural, moral, spiritual, and even political leadership in this context, something that America in some ways uniquely provides for citizens of diverse backgrounds, and provides Muslims incredible opportunities here in this country.
Absolutely. This is really inspiring. I hear a lot of things related to how the work that you're doing and Bayan will teach, and what you've experienced as an American Muslim leader. It relates to diversity, equity, and inclusion practices, how to help marry that idea of spiritual self and your identity, and help form that in, you know, maybe adults as well, but youth first, because I think we need to instill it in them. But I think a lot of us that are listening are really recognizing that. I think now's the time. People are talking more about diversity, equity, and inclusion. People know the word jihad. They know about Ramadan. So we should be talking about it. We should be like you and aspire to be showing up and meeting with others. So do you have any advice on specifically related to interfaith relations, or for an everyday Muslim, how we can get involved in these conversations?
Yes, we do have to show up, because if you're not on the table, you're on the menu, as some say. You know, this country, you know, people might say, oh, you must have a hard time with your name like Jihad. And I have to share my experience is not negative. You know, people ask me about Jihad and about Islam, but with a genuine curiosity. I think most Americans, even though some might be bigoted, etc., most Americans are genuine and curious, and there's an openness to learn and understand. And so if you show up, if you participate, if you break out of the bubble of your own comfort zone of culture and familiarity within the American Muslim community, whether it's a Bangladeshi community or Arab community or Pakistani community, if you break out of that zone, which you have to sooner or later because your kids are American. As much as you want them to be, associated with back home, maybe they'll take the food, maybe some of the music, but culturally speaking, the American cultural context is hegemonic. And so one of the things that will unite all of the Muslim youth is the connection to the faith and to American culture. And so if we can effectively inspire our young people through the faith to be leaders in society, we can bridge a gap that needs to be bridged. And I'll say one other thing on this is, a third of our community is African American, and we cannot neglect that really rich aspect of our community, because the African American Muslim community is unapologetically Muslim. They are in some ways inspiring to the immigrant communities and the children thereof of how to be really confident in your identity, even if you face difficulty. And sometimes you hear immigrant communities talking about how they face discrimination and bigotry. We face nothing compared to the discrimination that our African-American brothers and sisters face in society in general. And then if they're Muslim on top of that. So there's a lot of courage and inspiration there. And so one of the things that we've committed to doing at Bayan is to making sure that our faculty and our student body is reflective of the demographics of our community. It creates a more enriching environment in the classroom, and we learn from one another on how to do things well. And so, that's an important thing to consider. And we've partnered with the family of Muhammad Ali, the boxer, and we started a Muhammad Ali Scholarship Fund to make sure that, and feel free to help out this Ramadan, the education of Muslim leaders, men and women who are working full-time in underserved communities, to carry on the spiritual legacy of Muhammad Ali. Because, Muhammad Ali is a crossover icon. He's someone who's recognized, probably one of the most recognized people on the planet, even though he's passed away a number of years ago. He embodies this sense of love and confidence and excellence that reverberates with hearts and minds around the world, and also reflects some Islamic values as well. And his name is Muhammad Ali. And so, he's someone that we look up to within the Muslim community, but he's a crossover figure. And so carrying on his spirit of training leaders who can also seamlessly cross over and speak truth to power and be a dynamic force of leadership and moral courage in society is something that we're trying to embody and carry on at Bayan.
Yes, that is excellent, amazing. And I really wish you success in what you're doing. And how can someone like me or others that are listening learn more about Bayan? Or is there anything that we can do to learn more and practice what you're saying?
Well, there is one thing that it's really like a Ramadan gift. We have curated this incredible lineup of faculty with, who teach all of these great courses. We've recorded over 20 courses taught by these elite, academics and amazing scholars. We've recorded courses on Islamic law, Islamic history, Islamic philosophy and theology, and so many other topics, spirituality. And we posted them on a learning platform called bayanondemand.org. And you can sign up for only $10 a month and have access to hundreds of hours of content on at your own pace, on demand. So you can, for that $10 a month, which is a contribution that will go to help support the Muhammad Ali Scholarship. So it's both supporting a very worthy cause, and you get access to, it's kind of like Netflix for Islamic studies. You get access to, over 20 courses, over 200 hours of content, which you can access and really be inspired by. You can feed your mind, even though your body is not eating during Ramadan. You can feed your mind and your heart through signing up and taking advantage of that content. I encourage you strongly to do so. And even if nothing else, you're supporting a worthy cause through the scholarship funds that the scholarship that you would be supporting through that subscription fee.
I'm very inspired, so I'll be looking it up. BayanOnDemand.org, BAYAN ondemand.org. So I'll look into that. And one question that we've been asking every guest is a personal one. I know we learned a little bit about you, but we also want to learn anything special or unique that you do to celebrate Ramadan.
Sure. So first of all, I'm Palestinian American. My wife is Kashmiri. Our kids are all a mix of different things. We have 4 kids, my wife and I. My oldest is 21. My youngest is almost 12. We, starting during the pandemic, and I say we, but really it's my wife who came up with the brilliant idea of having an Eid Advent calendar, which is really just a Ramadan calendar that she crafted at home with the different phases of the moon for each day, and that she painted onto a pocket that hangs where that day of the month is. And inside the pocket is a conversation starter. And during iftar, which we have at home, we try and have at home as much as possible. We will have one of the kids open up the pocket and then take out the piece of paper and read what the conversation starter is for that day. For example, the first day was, what are your goals for this month? And that, you know, what are you grateful for, et cetera, et cetera. And so we would just go around and have conversations as a family around the theme for that day. And that's something that everyone can do, and you can figure out and be creative with the different conversations that you want to have during the month of Ramadan.
I love that. That's great. That's great advice and inspiration for parents or anyone. It's really exciting. Thank you so much for joining us today. Did you have anything else you wanted to share?
Just have a blessed Ramadan. And, you know, I always say to our kids, the ultimate objective of Ramadan is, as mentioned in the Quran, is awareness of God, or having greater conscientiousness of God, and gratitude. And so, you know, may you all have success in trying to elevate your consciousness of God during this month and develop a deep sense of gratitude for all of the blessings of food and drink, but also the many other innumerable blessings that we have in the month.
Thank you. Well, that is all. Inshallah, Ameen to your recommendations and your expectations of Ramadan. That is all for today, but please join us tomorrow here at iTVusa. We hope you all have a prosperous Ramadan. We wish you well. We wish that you remember gratitude and remember all of us in your prayers. Take care. Assalamu alaikum.
When I think about a test or a trial, this is what I think of. We go through experiences in order to discover our capacities.